What's up, everybody? Once again, I am back, and today was supposed to have two guests, but Mr. Martin Conroy, he couldn't make it because the man has to go take care of some charity work for veterans. So God bless him. We're happy he's doing that, and he's going to join us next week for kind of the part two of this with my other guest, Mr. Piere Depass. Before I jump into Pierre, I just want to make a quick correction. We marketed that Martin was a blockchain developer, and he corrected me. That was my mistake. He's a Web 3.0 guy. That's what he does. He works in the Web 3.0 space. He works with blockchain folks, and his company does develop in that blockchain space, but he's not the developer of that. So again, that's above my pay grade. That stuff happens when it's way above my intelligence level. So today we're talking about cybersecurity. We're going to touch on AI. We're going to touch on the importance. I just want to drop a pretty ugly statistic here for you guys about cybersecurity before I introduce my most awesome guest. Where was that stat that I pulled? Okay, absence of formal policy. 80% of small businesses. Now, understand what a small business is. That could be 1 employee to 500 employees, right? 80% of small businesses lack a formal cybersecurity policy. Okay. 51% of them have no cybersecurity measures. And let me explain to you, if you have a VIN number for a vehicle, if you have the last 4 digits of a social security number of your customer, or and you even have their birth date, with a birth date and the last 4 of a social security number, somebody could do a soft credit pull. That's all they need: name, birth date, last 4 of the social security number, soft credit pull. It's in there. It's on the web. That means if you're a hair salon, that means if you're a car repair guy, if that means that you're a baker and you have this information, it's out there. And information has more value than gold today. Think about that for a minute. There are people on the dark web and not so dark web peddling information, collecting and selling. That's why there's all these companies out there that are saying, pay us to remove your information. So I'm going to bring on Mr. Piere Depass. Sorry if I butchered that, Pierre. He is the CEO and managing director of Cyberfixers, and he's also a CMMC expert. Say hello to Pierre.
Good evening, everyone. And Eric, thank you for inviting me on. I really appreciate it. And I think the information that we're going to discuss is something that I believe is critical to the topic you just raised in terms of cybersecurity and what it means to the various industries. And like folks might not think about it in terms of what you said, like a baker, a car repair shop. And sometimes when you walk in and they ask for certain information, some folks just don't think that, oh, that's nothing. No one can really do anything with it. But you'd be surprised, as you said, what can be done with just those 3 pieces that you mentioned: birth date, last 4 of your social, and driver's license, that type of stuff. So again, thank you for inviting me, and let's jump right in.
Yeah. So I just want to really point out again, because I think one of the things people, small businesses don't understand, that small businesses isn't just 10 employees, 2 employees, 1 employee. That's upwards of 500 employees under SBA designation. And that's the simple blanket sort of statement. But that means that's a corporation. That's an LLC. That's a big company. They have 401ks. They have insurance programs. Manufacturers are good for that. We have, shipping companies. Anybody that has any employees up to that 500 or more is still considered a small business. And then when we start to get in that bigger space, where now we're talking Lockheed Martins, these major prime contractors, they still have that same problem, cybersecurity, right?
Yep.
And I think people tend to, when they hear cybersecurity, they don't correlate it. They think, oh, and this is a lot of advertising, because I'm always going down the advertising rabbit hole and blaming that for a lot of stuff. Small businesses go, hey, they see an ad. Hey, do you have Norton antivirus for your small business? You know what I mean? And they think, oh, I got Norton, I got my subscription, I'm good. because there's only two of us. And I think people don't realize that cybersecurity is a much bigger thing than an antivirus program or an anti-spam program. And then when they hear something like CMMC, it's gone. Unless they're in the space of government contracting, particularly DoD, that's going over their head. And we're going to get into CMMC in a minute. But talk to me a little bit about the reality of businesses and their failures to be secure, and what really is cybersecurity.
Okay, so cybersecurity is basically a concept. And the idea with cybersecurity is when you look at the term cyberspace, and cyberspace is basically, it's something that's a mixture of the cloud and a concept that says it's so large you cannot wrap your hands around it. Okay, it's something that's remote, kind of like when you read a story of like a Roman story of the Roman Empire, which was years and years and years ago. It doesn't seem quite connected to you, but yet if you get on your PC, it's something you can engage with. Cybersecurity, you're supposed to, as you mentioned, have something on your PC that you are using to engage cyberspace or the internet. It's supposed to have something that's supposed to filter your traffic as it comes in, to make sure that bad actors don't send you stuff. But while I'm on that topic in terms of the PC, right, I want to point out most people buy a personal computer and they just log in and go to work. You're
Yeah.
not supposed to do that. And when I say that, 90% of people that I know, that's what they do.
Yeah.
But what you're supposed to do is, because those PCs come with the software that only allows you to do just that. But you need to get a software where you can create an admin account and a user account. The user account standard security, where you cannot uh, um, install any software without getting admin privileges. That's the reason for a regular user account.
So it's the most basic of security, protecting your computer so your kid or your whomever, your salesperson can't go and install a game or anything like that simple.
Exactly. But it also has as the other added benefit of, if you should visit a site, and there are many of these fake sites out there that's malicious, where you click on it, once you click on the site, they'll simply download or load malicious software into your PC. And then the minute that you reboot, it loads itself. That's only if you are running your PC with admin privileges. Okay.
Right.
If you have a standard user account where you can't install anything because you haven't got admin privileges, once you reboot that PC, whatever they have downloaded goes away. Okay. But you're not told this because the bulk of the PCs out there that's sold to consumers, like in these retail stores, the Targets, the Best Buys, the Walmarts, and so on, they come with a single user license where you can only use it as is with full admin privileges. And many times it's because they want to make sure the system is functional to the layperson who is simply not computer savvy, which makes sense, but it also leaves them open to exactly what I just mentioned. They do have software where you can buy basically like a pro license that gives you like a couple licenses, gives you the ability to create a user account and an admin account. And again, the user account is just for you to do that, use the PC. The admin account, if you need to make any changes to the computer, upgrades or install anything, you revert to your admin account, and that gives you that privilege. So when you talk about cybersecurity, that's just one piece of cybersecurity. And what I just explained is termed end user protection. And that's just one piece of it. Now we can go ahead if you want to say something.
Yeah. So, I guess for clarity too, just because a lot of small businesses aren't starting a business immediately. And again, this can be a small business that has 100 people.
Mm-hmm.
They aren't necessarily all jumping into this network technology where they're buying, professional machines, etc. They might be just buying this. Hey, I got a great deal from this warehouse buy. You know what I mean? Oh, look, it was 20 PCs. I got them for half price, or I just bought these off lease ones.
Right.
Right. And so they think that that's so what you're basically saying is that, people have to be aware of one, what they're buying, and two, how it's being used, right? And how many people are being used, because that first simple layer of security helps to whatever degree it
Yep.
helps. All right. So, yeah, so I just wanted to clear that up. Go ahead. Let's go on with the cybersecurity definition.
Okay. So the second piece of this, and again, this what we're discussing is end user protection. And if you look at it from like a corporate perspective, and some of your listeners might be in a corporate setting, they usually are given a certain level of access to the PC if it's a corporate asset. Okay. And that means that they are allowed to install certain type of software, but certain types that simply will affect the operating system, they aren't allowed to access it, because the operating system was pre-made and pre-configured, and it's the same same configuration for everyone across the corporation. Usually when you buy a PC in a local retail store, you only get, as I said, the one license to use the PC. What they can do is purchase an additional license, which shouldn't cost that much, probably maybe like $50-$60 if they can find the right place to purchase it from. Hopefully they'll buy it from an authorized Microsoft reseller if they're using Microsoft or Apple. And what will happen is they can then use that license as an additional user to create a user account versus the one that they purchased the PC with as an admin account. And so they lock one down for only using and the other one for admin privileges. It's well worth the money, because if you have that, you can still get certain type of malware, but it'll be more like a Trojan, right? It won't be a virus, which is the common one. It'll prevent the PC from actually getting a virus that easy, because it doesn't have the privilege that it needs to implement itself.
All right, you hear that, folks? This is such a simple fix to get your first phase of security put together. Is pay. Don't. Here's something you small businesses have to know. Again, any small businesses, I don't care your size. Cost versus investment. Cost versus investment. If you see it as a cost, oh my God, this software is going to cost me 60. It's going to cost me 100. It's going to cost me 120. You're in the wrong mindset. It's an investment into your business. Okay, so immediately change your mindset, because this is an investment into your security of your business. So get that extra license, that pro license that allows you to have the admin privileges. So we got that out of the way. I don't want to deep dive in how to load this stuff on your computer and do what you got to do, because we have some other really important topics when it comes to cybersecurity to talk about. Okay. And we talked off camera a bit about, you told me this story, and I think everybody needs to hear this story. We talk about one of the things I did look up, before we got here, was I didn't deep dive. I sort of did this industry overview of, by industry, who has cybersecurity gaps, right? And so it gave me basically just three sort of overviews. Professional services in general. So that means a wide range of different people. One of our favorites, manufacturing.
Mm-hmm.
And then what we just talked about, healthcare. Tell me that story about the healthcare industry you told me off camera. Tell everybody about this, because that was astounding.
Oh, yes. So many of you listening, and many of you who will actually view this video in the future, and hopefully people will share it so they can see it. A lot of what you have, you go to places like your healthcare provider, meaning your doctor, your primary care, your dentist, your specialist, and all that good stuff. Many simply don't have the resources, right? The staff for full-time IT. And the folks who they have doing their IT, usually what they're concerned about is basically ensuring that the PCs have antivirus. Well, antivirus is not going to basically, without specifically saying it, it's not going to protect you from ransomware. It's not going to protect you from certain types of malware, okay? Because there's a difference between Trojans and viruses, okay? And they have different categories of malware. And what happens is, as I was explaining to Eric off here before we got started, I went to a doctor. This was a couple of years ago, probably 3-4 years ago.
Crazy.
And I'm sitting in the parking lot, and it's in the winter, so it's, it's past 6 p.m. So it was a late night for them, and so it's pretty dark. And I'm sitting there. I mean, lights are on, the place is well lit and all that, but it's dark outside. And I saw this Honda Accord pull up, and this kid is driving it. I didn't know who it was, but they got out. They parked the car, left the car running, got out the driver's side, got into the passenger side, and you could see they had a PC on their lap, and they were really going at it on the PC. 12, maybe 15 minutes, 20 minutes go by, and they're so engrossed in what they're doing, they get out the car, stood outside, stretched, and did their knuckles like this, like, boy, they're really working, and they got back in the passenger, went right back to doing whatever they were doing. One of the examples I gave Eric was, if a police officer is riding through a particular neighborhood, and so are you might feel pretty safe. But the police officer, because of what they do for a living, they're seeing things that you're not seeing. And they might say, hey, I see this, it's time to get out of here because of what they're seeing. You might be totally unaware of what's happening and just continue as if nothing is going on. The same thing in my line of work. Something just didn't feel or seem right. And I kind of said to myself, this person obviously must have access to this network in the doctor's office or somewhere around here that's close by, because they seem just totally like, just, they're able to do what they do, and they're not worried about anybody seeing or knowing what they're doing. So I got out my vehicle and I walked over to the car and I tapped on the window. I knocked on the window and they put the window down. I said, does the doctor know that you have access? I assumed, of course, it was a doctor's office, which is really the only place around there that you could see a signal, because I went to my phone to try to see if I could pick up anything, and it basically gave the name of the practice, and so it was the strongest signal. So I naturally assumed that's what it was. And I said, does the doctor know that you're using their network? Are you authorized to do so? And it's like they saw a ghost. That was actually the look on their face. So I said, listen, why don't you, let's go inside and you can let the doctor know you're using their network. So it's running slow, they'll know you're using it. So the kid goes, okay, let me, sign out on my laptop and close it. So I stood back and they signed out as whatever they're doing, and they closed it, and I started walking towards the door. So they said, okay, they got out the car, and I hear them get out the car, close the door. I figure they're coming behind me. I look around, they jump in the driver's seat and they took off.
It's gone.
So I went inside and I told the doctor. The doctor looked at me as if like, okay, go ahead and finish. And then kind of like shrugged their shoulders. I'm like, you understand what they're doing and the fact they had access to your network and you got all these records and stuff in here. And the doctor was like, their expression and just the feeling I got was like, okay, what do you want me to do?
Yeah.
Right. So, I mean, I could have actually taken the time to, as Eric used the word, deep dive, but I got the feeling it wouldn't have made much of a difference. So I just said, okay, fine. I'm not wasting my time. I just know that I won't be using them in the future. I mean, you probably run into the same thing at another practice or other practices, but at least I won't know about it. Okay.
Right. But see, this is the thing, you brought up a good point, was here's the healthcare industry that has to protect your information under HIPAA laws.
Mm-hmm.
Right. But, how much is that? It's not extending to their network. The laws aren't extending to their network. It's not extending to their Wi-Fi. None of that. Excuse me. And one of the things is it's baffling because that's some really vital information. Like I said in the beginning of this, information is more valuable than gold.
Today,
you know what I mean?
Yep, agreed.
More valuable. This is why we get, hackers just out of other countries steal patents. They steal IPs, right? Intellectual properties, because that's valuable. That has value to them. And they could resell it, or they can use it to manufacture new products or anything else. So, to have the healthcare industry is one of these spaces where there's a gap. And look, I'm not making it up. I certainly didn't deep dive to see what that gap looks like. But if that's one of the three industries, when I simply asked for a category by industry, and it gave me three: healthcare, manufacturing, professional services. It didn't say oil. It didn't say, DPW.
Right.
It gave me three industries. And there's those categories for industries are much bigger. Just go look at NAICS codes, right? There's a lot of industries, transportation, etc. So if healthcare was up in that top three, you can assume. But number two, because I mentioned manufacturing is another massive gap in cybersecurity, and probably equally as important, especially in today's political situation where we are trying to bring manufacturing back to the United States, right? The US government has put this plan in motion to have manufacturing be stateside here again. And I think it was your associate Steven had told me a horror story about he walked into a manufacturing plant and the guy took his flash drive from his personal computer that had to work on it and plugged it into the business computer. And he's having a conniption because he's like, what the hell is going on here? This is some crazy shit. Like, what are you
Yep.
doing?
Yep.
And that's a big deal. And this is how we're going to segue into why cybersecurity is so important, because of the future of things, what are happening. But let's talk about manufacturing. I think I pulled the statistic, and you can help me out here. So in 2024, according to IBM's X-Force Threat Intelligence Index, the number of all manufacturing global cyber attacks was 25.7%.
Ooh,
Okay.
I wasn't aware of that. Yeah.
All right. Let's just finish these. The number of threat actors targeting manufacturing increased by 71% in 2024. Okay. With 71% of attacks on manufacturing involving ransomware. That was 2024. Okay. Now, I just happened to notice that this year, the explosion and the evolution of AI is astronomical. Astronomical. So I can imagine that these statistics have increased just to this point of the year, 8 months into the year, 9 months into the year on the manufacturing industry. And you've seen it firsthand.
Oh, yeah.
So how bad is manufacturing from your perspective, and how slapped are they going to get in the future if they don't fix it?
So to answer that question, let me kind of put it in perspective for your listeners. So what Eric is alluding to is the Cybersecurity Maturity Model Certification, or framework, or ecosystem. It's a framework that was developed by the Department of Defense to address just exactly what Eric just mentioned: a lapse in protection for our intellectual properties. It could be a design of the wiring for a fighter jet. It could be the design of the wiring for one of our aircraft carriers. All of the hundreds of millions for the fighter jet and the billions plus for our aircraft carriers. As simple as the wiring, right, could cause its prime objective or directive to be ineffective, right? So the problem here is the defense industrial base, which is estimated to include somewhere about 300,000 companies, right, is always a target for cyber attacks. If you look around, you will see that the Chinese, and we won't even talk about North Korea or the Russians or Iran or anybody else, because they all seem to have different areas that they target to steal our technology. But China as a whole has stolen right across the board. Iran has been successful in targeting our drones and duplicating our drones, a lot of them because they were shot down by our adversaries and they somehow managed to get their hands on it, and the same thing with North Korea. But China specifically has, if you've been reading and searching through the internet and seeing all of the cyber news, they have literally have state-sponsored hackers that have stolen a lot of our stuff. Okay, and it's been all over the news, so you can't miss it. Now, the problem is that the theft of our intellectual property and sensitive unclassified information, which is termed controlled unclassified information, which I'll speak a little bit more about in a few, you know, it poses a significant risk, to put it conservatively, to our national and economic security. Yeah, Eric.
It's just, I made a joke about this. You just went dark on your
Oops.
screen,
Let me
got
back
a
up.
little dark. Um, I made a
I
joke
don't know
about
why.
this when we
Mhm.
were talking about, there it goes, kind of better. So, you know, it's right now you're talking about national security,
Mhm.
economic and national security, but at some point, I mean, somebody's going to figure out how to turn our microwaves into bombs. And I don't say this as like, I did say it as a joke, but when you think about it, with everything being computerized, it's just a matter of a manufacturer getting hacked and something being changed. The big joke is like, look, do you really want your car turning into a transformer and killing you? Because,
Mhm.
you know, as silly as it sounds, there's somebody out there that already got that idea, you know, and that's what you're really talking. And I'm putting this in like fun terms, but
Mhm.
you know, this is what you're talking about. You're not talking about just our jet fighters or
No,
our tanks.
no,
You're talking about this can, in the manufacturing sector, they don't have to be DoD manufacturers. They can be
correct,
manufacturing parts for the George Washington Bridge.
correct. Yep. But
You know, so
that
I mean, I'm sorry to interrupt you. I mean, because the CMMC stuff is really important right now because we're moving in or already in a space that's making it a requirement.
oh yes, oh yes. So, and again, for the listeners, what Eric is alluding to here is the two regulations. One that was actually put in place last December, December 15th, if I'm not mistaken, that pretty much says that there's a requirement now, regulatory requirement, for anyone that's in receipt of a U.S. government contract, that they're obligated, required to provide a certain level of protection for the data in that they have in performance of that contract, whether that data was provided to them by the US government, whether it was created by them for the US government, it matters not. As long as they have a contract from the US government, they have a requirement to protect that data. And the US government, specifically the Department of Defense, have developed a framework so that it's not something that's going to be ad hoc. Many of you who have possibly or probably implemented controls before should be aware of the NIST 853. Okay,
Right.
and
National Institute of
standards and technology.
Technology, right?
Right,
NIST. Okay.
right. They are based in Washington. They are our standards laboratory. Okay, and they write all the standards that whatever you're looking to do. If you go to their website, you can probably find something that tells you how to implement it securely, and it's free. Okay, so they developed that framework to address issues that we have in protecting the data that these contractors have in their possession. The crazy thing about it is that this wasn't just implemented just now back last year. It's been a requirement for the better part of more than 15 years, going on 20 years. But because there was no enforcement mechanism, most of the folks just picked and choose whatever it is they wanted and
Hmm.
implemented whatever control, just so they can say they have something implemented. And most of the time, what it amounted to was what we discussed earlier, and Norton antivirus on their desktop PCs. Okay, and this is what they were using. Okay, but it's inadequate to say the least. Okay,
We're getting Terminators. It's
yeah.
coming.
So
Yes.
yeah, so what ended up happening? They finally said, after they saw how fast China have risen in terms of their defense technology, and with the understanding of where it came from, they're like, look, something has to be done.
Right.
And what they have decided was like, we need to develop a framework that was well researched, funded, and implemented. And this happens to be the CMMC standard. It's based on the NIST 853, ISO 27,000, okay, among other things, and a host of other standards written by NIST. And so it's a very, very secure and very durable framework. And if you're a contractor or a subcontractor that has a contract from the federal government, you are obligated to implement NIST 800-171. Okay, and that's if you are required compliance at levels 1 and 2. There are actually 3 levels. And the 3 levels are level 1, which is FCI. And at that level, you are obligated because you have 17 standard practices that you must implement. Okay. And at level 2, you have 110. And then at level 3, you have 110 plus an additional, I believe it's 25 practices that you must implement. At level 1, you're allowed to self-assess and then report the score to the government to say, hey, I have met these requirements. My environment is compliant, and that's at level 1, meaning you basically have a contract from the government. If you are in a situation where you have actual controlled unclassified information, or level 2, now you no longer have to just have an assessment done. You have to have your environment certified. And that's where they have what they call a C3PAO, or Certified Third Party Assessment Organization, come in after you have already gone through and did like an overall assessment of your network to make sure that you are meeting all of your level 1 compliance and level 2. Okay, you have them come in and certify your environment. Now this is important, and the reason it's important, I won't even address level 3 as yet, is because in October of this year, or at least that's what's being said now, because the rule is actually with OIRA, which is a agency within the government. It's basically the last step before it actually becomes a regulation. Okay, it's supposed to come into as a regulation in October of this year, which is about 6 weeks from now, right? If they require an extension for whatever the reason, the most they can get is 30 days. So at most you might see November. Okay, but it's going to be here this year. Right. Now, we had a similar discussion last year for Title 32, which basically said no matter which agency you have a contract from, you are obligated to protect it and implement certain controls. This particular regulation adds 2 things. 1, there is a penalty if you don't implement it and you're caught after you told the government that you have implemented it, and you are caught and found out that you did not. And you're able to prove that you did not implement what you said you did. Okay. Yeah. That's the first thing. The second thing is that they will tell you once you try to get a contract, they're going to ask you, is your network compliant? And if you say it is, and you're level 1, and they sign that piece of paper, your CO, okay, contracting officer signs it, and you get it, and you're good to go. And then a breach happens, and then they're obligated to now come in, because the government is going to come in and do their own investigation, or it could be an organization on behalf of the government. Whatever it is, it represents the government. Now let's just say you told the government that my environment is compliant. And then the government comes in after a breach and finds out that none of what you have said has been true for like the last 2 or 3 years. Okay. Even if it's just for the last one that same year. And what happens now, let's say you have a contract, to make this simple, from the government for $100,000. Okay. The penalty is 3 times the amount of the contract. As a small business and you get a contract for $1 million, you haven't got $3 million sitting around.
Yeah.
Okay. So
Yeah.
now when they hit you with that three times the amount, okay, then all of a sudden you're now not just financial difficulties, your brand has taken a hit. And now because you lied,
you're done.
Yeah, you're finished. You're out of business. Yeah. And then they're going to tell you that you no longer qualify for any more contracting opportunities with the government.
That's got to be one of the worst. Is going to be one of the. I mean, no, there's nothing. I mean, you can have a bad mark on your SAM, right? You can have a bad review. Oh, they didn't deliver on time.
Right.
But this,
yeah,
you're done. You're done.
Finished.
So I'm going to dial back real quick for a minute because I just want to level set this for people like me who need it in lay terms. Mm-hmm. So bear with me because I know whoever watches, most people in cybersecurity understand everything you're talking about. So there's a three levels to the CMMC certification. Mm-hmm. And right now it's focused predominantly in the DoD space, Department of Defense, yes. Right? And it's obviously updated in DFARS. I'm pretty sure it's in the DFARS updates, right? So it's there. DFARS, for anybody who doesn't know, that's the defense. Now I'm going totally blank. Federal Acquisition Regulations.
Correct.
Right? And so if you're interested in becoming a government contractor, you have to sign up for SAM, and then you get to read all the DFARS that you have to comply with. Just in general, and this stuff is in there.
Yep.
So when you are about to be a subcontractor or a prime contractor for anything having to do with defense, just right now, and especially when it comes to information space, but just in general, you have to have this compliance set up. This is not time. If you're new and you're not ready, you're just not ready. Go get ready. If you've been at this for a while and you've been stalling, you will be screwed come the end of October. Maybe you'll be okay until the end of November. And number 3, if you bullshit, lie, tell a story, try to finagle around it, you are finished when you're caught. Not if you're caught, when you're caught. Especially right now in this political climate. These people are not screwing around.
No.
Okay.
Oh, no.
Before this administration, I heard horror stories, and this wasn't even DFARS. This was regular federal acquisition regulation violations. I've heard people go get 6 months in jail.
Mm-hmm.
This is not something you mess around with. So having these compliances is an investment into your business. Working with somebody to help you get those compliances is an investment in your business because, again, just like you said, Pierre, if you have $1 million contract and you've cheated or you've lied under, whatever the standard for certification is, it's costing you $3 million. But if it cost you $100,000 to get certified or to pay a consultant, and you're fully certified, that $1 million contract with your good performance can result in a $5 million contract.
Absolutely.
You have to think far ahead. So again, sorry to interrupt you, but I just wanted to make it really clear. It's not super complicated to understand. Mm-hmm. If you're not a tech person, obviously I'm not a tech guy. Mm-hmm. Like we could talk about fixing the streaming service, but once we're in your space, I am the village idiot.
No, trust me, you're a lot more informed than a lot of folks out there. But I'm hoping, as you said, making it, putting it in layman's terms, that they will make sure that they pay close attention, because this could impact a lot of people's livelihood and their ability to provide for themselves and their families.
Well, let's talk about that statistic, right? Because one of the, I did a little bit of a dive on, was when does this go federal? Like not just in Department of Defense. When does this go federal. That means GSA. That means U.S. Post Office. That means everybody. What are we looking at? So, according to what I found, and I
Mhm.
mentioned to you this off camera, there's a lot of implementation that is going to be finalized in steps, right? But by 2028 we're done. There is no it's just going to be an evolution. 2028 it's going to be 100% across the DoD board, but that doesn't mean it's going to be across the government yet. On the flip side of that, it doesn't mean that it's not, because every agency watches what's happening now.
Absolutely. And to answer your question, it is already government wide. The minute Title 30, actually, it's been government wide for the better part of 20 years. But the key is there has been no enforcement mechanism. That was the key. Now, with Title 32 that came into effect last year as a regulation, it basically made it so that if you have a contract, you are obligated to implement certain controls. If it even just the basic 17 basic cybersecurity practices at level 1, if it's even just that, you are obligated. What Title 48 does is, from the DoD perspective, said that if your environment is not compliant, you cannot get a contract. That's going to be written into the contract once Title 48 comes into play. Okay, but specifically for DoD, whether or not the other agencies will adopt this at that point remains to be seen.
It's inevitable, though.
Oh no, I believe it is. I mean, and the thing is that in terms of the penalties part, all of the agencies have that in play. Okay, what I mean by that is Georgia Tech and Verizon got hit last year, and one was last year, and one was the year before, with very significant amounts, because they have what they call the Whistleblowers Act, which is you have the False Claims Act. And I don't have to explain to you guys about what the Whistleblowers Act means. I mean, all you need is to fudge some numbers, as I have previously mentioned on this stream, and you have your accomplice who helped you implemented it, right? Now, you may have some not gotten a particular contract, might not be able to keep as much employees as you had hoped, but you made the mistake of releasing one of your accomplices who helped you report the score that wasn't true or wasn't real or wasn't factual. And now you have a disgruntled employee, and they go out there and they blow the whistle on you, like what happened with Georgia Tech, and I believe it was also Verizon. Yeah. All of a sudden, the government says, hey, wait a minute, someone ratted you out. We have to come in and take a look, see if there is anything credible. If they come in and they find, and the government is going to come in and take a look once they have that, okay? They're obligated to. That's part of the rules. And once they come in and they look, if they do find something, then not, okay, if it was, and for these companies like those that I mentioned, okay, they're in the millions. So let's just say the contract was for $5 million. You now owe the government $15 million. It gets pretty painful.
Yeah.
And to add insult to injury, the employee that ratted you out, they get like 35 or 40% off that penalty. So if
incentivized.
Yes, it's very incentivized. And most contractors don't realize that. So the best thing to do is to spend the money, budget it properly, and implement the controls that is required in performance of your contract, because these are what you're going to run into out there. And people nowadays in this environment, if they see the ability to get the equivalent of $4.5 million, okay, because I think that's about what the estimate is out of 15 million or something like that, they're not going to turn that down.
No,
no. Especially if they're disgruntled. Okay,
I'm singing and I'm not a rat.
Exactly. They'll be like, look, your organization, someone ratted you out because maybe somebody told on that employee, and the government go to this particular employee, and the employee is like, okay, they're going to come back to you and tell you, hey, I think the government knows something. I think, we got caught. and the organization's going to say, the company going to say, no, we didn't get caught, you got caught. And the employee going to say, no, we got caught. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
Absolutely. Well, this goes into a great moment to just bash some of these businesses. And I don't say that, to be mean. Some of these businesses got to get bashed.
mhm,
Like, wake up. Like, again, let's hit that manufacturing button again, because I'm going to harp on manufacturing, because I don't want my damn vehicle or my toaster to kill me because of some bad actor.
yep,
But everything's got a chip in it. Everything's got computerization in it. I'll tell you a quick story. I had a talking microwave way, way back. This is going back like 20 years ago. It was just, it said popcorn. Your popcorn is popping. It was all pre-programmed, right? And at the time when I was married, I started screwing with my then wife, saying the microwave's going to kill you. The microwave doesn't like you, because it was a woman's voice on the microwave. The microwave's jealous of you. And she was getting pissed. Yeah, I was cruel, but it was funny. Right. But here's the dark side of that. We're in a time now where, now my microwave might kill me.
mhm,
It's like, wait a minute. It's crazy. And, manufacturers, with this boom coming, and yes, manufacturing people, you're like rolling your eyes and pissed off at me that I'm about to bash you. But if your engineer is taken from their home laptop a flash drive and they're plugging it into your computer with whatever at work to run a machine, you don't know what's happened. You have no security. And this is that story that your partner Steven told us.
yep,
But again, I go back to one representing 100. If one person is doing it and they represent 100 people that are doing it, that's hundreds of thousands of people in manufacturing. You know what I mean? So
mhm,
this is a big deal right now, and I know you've seen it. You've been talking to people in the manufacturing extension program about it, because they've seen it. And we know bureaucracy makes everything slow to the punch, whether it's got to have a meeting to have a meeting, or whether it's we've got to go through 17 different people for budget approvals, and that slows the process down
yep.
to getting implemented. And so, no shade on MEP, love you guys, but if there's this process that's taking so long at that level. And by the way, for anybody who doesn't know what MEP is the Manufacturing Extension Program. They're a NGO, and a lot of their funding comes out of NIST, and I think they get funding from somewhere else, but I can't remember. So they're good, they're great, they are fantastic. But if you're waiting to get services from them, maybe it's time to invest in the private sector, because there's going to be a backlog for help from them, while all the people standing in line waiting. And that's really important. And let's talk about that for a minute. That investment into your manufacturing company, or any business for that matter. And remember, folks, manufacturing isn't just building cars, it's making donuts. It's making soap. If you have a machine line, you're manufacturing. So it's everything under the sun. So let's talk about that. Why is it important if people can't continue to wait online for provided services? Why is it important for them to get an expert like yourself to move them along?
Okay, so I appreciate the segue into this. While I was talking to you, because I was looking to my right on my screen, I was trying to find the statistics in terms of the whistleblowers, in terms of Georgia Tech. But actually, if any of you listening, including you, Eric, wants to go and into the Google and just look up Georgia Tech and False Claims Act, or Georgia Tech and whistleblowers, and Verizon and false claims, or Verizon whistleblowers, those articles will come up, so you get an idea of how real this is. Now, let's go back to your question again, Eric, in terms of having someone like myself come in and take a look at your environment. The thing is that you have to meet a certain level to be able to maintain your livelihood. And I'm going to assume that folks that have contracts from the government, they're not doing it because they're retired and have nothing better to do. This is how they make their living. And pretty much, you want to have someone competent. There's going to be a lot of folks out there who are going to tell you and advertise that they can help you get your environment ready and compliant. But if they're not listed in the CMMC marketplace, and Eric, if you could pull up the cyberab.org, and just kind of quickly show the click on marketplace so they can get an idea what I'm talking about. If they're
I'll put everything in the description once
okay,
it's up.
right.
We'll have all those links in there.
Okay, so yeah, and Eric will provide it for you. If they are not listed in the Cyber AB marketplace, you don't want to use them because they may have had experience with assurance or auditing or GRC, which is governance, risk, and compliance. But if it's not specific information from the CMMC environment or ecosystem, it's not going to be relevant. Stuff that works for NIST 853 will not be complete enough for you to have your environment compliant to meet the requirements of your contract. And like I said, based on what these individuals tell you, and you go ahead and submit your scores, and a breach happens, and you find out after the fact that it was inadequate, does not help you. So you want to make sure if you're going to get someone from the CMMC or cyberab.org marketplace. It'll list everyone who has been authorized by the government to help you get your environment ready. And for those who were complaining that it's expensive and all of this stuff, and Eric alluded to that earlier, you should have been doing this more than 10, 15 years ago. So a budget should have already been there. And if you tell the government during a breach that, hey, you guys just hit us with this requirement and it's expensive and unwieldy, they're going to say, wait. It's expensive. So all those years you were telling us that your environment was compliant. How did you do that? Has it really been? Or you don't want to fall into that situation, okay?
Yeah.
Because you should have already had a budget in place and doing all of what they're telling you to do now. It's just that now they're making it official, and there are penalties if you are found out that you did an assessment and did an attestment, which is required now from senior management, that what you're implementing or extending the government is true. If it's found out that is not the case, then you're going to have issues that you don't want to be caught in that space. Okay, so again, to answer the question that Eric posed earlier, this is the reason why you need someone like myself that is listed in the marketplace as having all of the necessary information and credentials or experiences to be able to help you get yourself ready to avoid that type of situation. And if you haven't already in the process of having it done, you are at least 6 months to a year behind, because there are over 300,000 businesses in the ecosystem, and that's a conservative estimate. And there's only about 1,800 or 2,000 of us that can do that. It's simply not enough. Okay?
Yeah.
So you need to get started.
So I'm going to reiterate this statistic, right? Ransomware was heavily involved, with 71% of attacks on manufacturing involving ransomware. So that's just some lightweight shit from my perspective, ransomware. This is not, a really bad actor who's trying to make, stuff blow up in our face, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is just some people on the financial side. So if that's the case, think about what happens when people become, when we have worse actors trying to get in that space, especially as we develop manufacturing. But I'm going to push this back a little bit, because we've been talking about a lot of government contracting here and a lot of DoD stuff. And there's people who are never going to be a government contractor, or so they think.
Right.
Okay. So they think, because 90-something%, I don't know what the specific statistic is, federal, state, and local purchase from small businesses.
Right.
Right. So that's a big percentage. So technically, if somebody's making, if your local police department's making a purchase from you, you're a contractor. You're just not maybe a federal contractor.
Correct.
So all this does apply to you in some capacity at some level. Because again, if you are in a position where You are holding on to information, somebody's information. For argument's sake, let's say you have a government credit card. You have the police department's petty cash fund credit card on file for balloons for the PBA party.
Hmm.
You have somebody's, you have vital information, you know? So I just want to make clear that cybersecurity isn't only for, and that's kind of where we started this at. It isn't
Hmm.
only for government contractors, for everybody. And it's relevant.
So let me jump in for one quick second and kind of add some additional information or clarity on what you just mentioned. Many people don't think of it this way, but there are two levels. Okay, well, three levels, but the two that we basically spoke about tonight was level 1 and level 2. Level 2 have what they call controlled unclassified information, where you must have your environment certified by an external authorized party, the C3PAO. But you can also, as an organization, self-assess and attest at level 2 for what they call non-critical CUI, or controlled unclassified information. What that is, universities, higher education, if they have contracts to do research and different stuff, which most in this country do, okay. If you have been reading the news, Harvard and Columbia University and a few others have been dealing with that, having monies withheld by the federal government. It's because of that. They also have to do this exact same thing, have their environments certified. Okay, if what they consider controlled unclassified non-critical would be stuff like information they receive from the IRS for your son or your daughter or yourself going to school, and you're getting loans or you're getting grants or whatever it is from the government to help pay your college tuition, but they must get your social security number, your income.
Right.
That's non-critical information that doesn't necessarily affect national security, but it still has to be protected. And that goes back to what you were saying a few minutes ago. All of that comes into play.
Right. So, it definitely is, and we haven't even touched on AI, and that's a whole rabbit hole
Yes.
that we can't even cover in 10 minutes. But I just want to put this sort of buzz in everybody's ear because I mentioned it in just the last 8-9 months alone. We've seen AI explode. Like we are literally watching. If you go back to January, you see these crappy AI videos online, and they're all like so much hallucination and deformities and this and that. And now there's literally, they look human. You know what I mean? So that's in 8 months. That's in 8 months. So, and that's simple. And, when we do our cybersecurity event on November 12th with cyber fixers and several other key players in the industry, we're actually going to have an AI demo with different systems. Okay. They did an AI hacking demo last year where they took free chat GPT, free,
Mm-hmm.
and they were able to have free chat GPT create a fake phone call that literally communicated with you and tried to get information out of you to click a button. And this was free. This was, anybody can access this AI software. This year, we're going to show a much deeper dive and much more engaged. I'm not going to give away any secrets to what it is, but it's going to blow your minds what AI can do today. And when we talk about cybersecurity, a lot of times people are not putting those two things together. But AI is going to be a tool used by bad actors
It already
to,
is.
it already is, right? So it's already is being used by bad actors to breach, to create viruses, to ransom, to hack, to whatever you want to call it. It's already happening. And we didn't get a chance to really deep dive that because we had to beat up the manufacturing community today.
So, so one quick for everyone listening: if you get phone calls and a lot of spammers call you with these phone calls, when you answer the phones, do your best not to use word like yes and no or okay, anything that will give permission or authorization. Avoid using those words. Let them speak, and if it's not somebody that you know or want to talk to, cut them off, because they're getting a voice print of your voice, and that is going to get you into a lot of trouble.
That's why when I go hello and they're like blah blah blah, I just start cursing at them.
Yes.
That's what
Yes.
I just go off.
Yes.
I go nuts. Um, so yeah, so you're going to be at Cybersecurity 25 this year in Atlantic City with
Mhm.
us. You'll be doing a presentation with your team panel. It's going to be really a great. We have a symposium set up with we have two tracks this year. So we
Mhm.
have a business to business track and we have a government contracting track. So there's going to be something for everybody at the event. Our exhibitors are going to have opportunities to meet. It's going to be a full day event, and it's just going to be great to really sort of be talking about AI and manufacturing and small business, and really be able to get those communities to really engage each other and learn. This isn't a show me event. This isn't people coming up on stage to sell you a subscription. This is an educational event we're putting forward, right? The rules at my events are there's no selling on the stage, no selling in the classroom. What you do on the show floor is your business, but you're going to come in there with tangible information, actionable information. You're going to meet people that can bring you, because we vet everybody. And you know this, Pierre. I'm not bringing
Yes.
some random dude because they paid a sponsorship. I don't
Exactly.
do that shit. I want to see the presentation. We have to have a conversation. I have to know you've been referred, like you were referred by Stan Mearswa, Dr.
Right.
Mearswa
Yep.
to us,
Yep.
right? So I don't bring actors to our table who can be, their sales pitches or whatever. That our event's going to be this event that really gets you diving in, whether you're a small business, a small bakery who needs B2B sort of education for cybersecurity, or you're a prime contractor, somebody interested in becoming a subcontractor to a prime. Hey, there's some really, it's kind of really cool to be like able to say, yo, I'm the dude that makes the little screw for the Raptor jet. I don't care if it's a little screw. That's cool, right?
Mhm.
So there's something for everybody, and I'm going to be really excited to have you, Pierre. Just real quick before we have to break in a couple minutes, give me a sort of a quick rundown of maybe something you'll be talking about. If it's other, we know you're talking CMMC, but maybe something you didn't touch on tonight that you could tease everybody with.
Well, there are two things actually, and both of them are what you mentioned. AI. AI is actually a very, very valid threat. Okay, as you mentioned, its development. I don't know. I'm not worried about dating myself, but I can tell everyone I've been around technology and security a very long time, 25 years plus. Okay, I've been there since the 8088 microprocessor, which is ancient history by now. Okay, and what I'm trying to say is that the with the development of the microprocessors, okay, in the late 80s, mid to late 80s, it was every 6 to 9 months they were doing a different leap. Okay, from 16 megahertz to 20 to 25 to 30 to 40 to 50 and so on. It seems AI is starting to do the exact same thing.
Yeah.
Okay, and it's developing at an astounding rate. That means you'll get phone calls and you won't exactly know if you're talking to a machine or a person. Okay, and that's why I mentioned,
Scary.
yeah, be very, very careful when you're having conversations, and if you're giving anything in a tone or a context, and the actual physical words, yes, you know, authorization, okay, and that type of stuff, be really, really, really careful.
Excuse me.
So that's something we'll be talking about, and hopefully how to address and overcome some of that, both in your personal life in terms of spammers calling you and in terms of your business. Okay. The second piece of this is something called quantum computing. And Eric has been hearing that from me every other time he hears the word quantum computing. And just to give you a quick 2 second outline on that, quantum years ago, in the 1920s and 30s, we had mainframes. Mainframes, only the government or a government entity could afford that. And it took up a whole one of those massive warehouses you see that has the word Amazon written on it going down the highways. That's the size of a typical a facility with a mainframe computer in it. And that was in 1920s. Well, fast forward today, 100 years later, pretty much, and now you have quantum computing, and they're taking up exactly the same space. So we are where we are today with quantum computing, where we were back in the 1920s with mainframe computers. Okay. So another 20 years, because of the speed of development of technology, you will probably be able to see a PC in an office building that the encryption and the computer securities we have today, coupled with AI, that those encryption are supposed to be take like 1,000 years with today's computing technology to crack.
I'm saying, I
With
remember.
quantum computing, they're saying somewhere between 30 seconds to 30 minutes. Okay.
It's
Now,
crazy.
if a state-sponsored actor like China is able to actually even get that thing working, right, in a prototype, everything we have, military or not, is going to be exposed and
Yeah.
at risk.
That's crazy. And again, I'm not trying to sit here and fearmonger. The media does that enough for us.
Yes.
You know what I mean? But this is a real threat, period, at any
Yes.
level.
Yes.
Personal information,
Yes.
small businesses. Listen, you could be a cell phone repair shop, small
Hmm.
businesses. You could be making, jets for the government. This is really that. And people have talked, saw this in movies from the 50s, the 60s, the 70s, you know, what was that movie with Matthew Broderick? War Games.
War games. Yes.
War Games. I mean,
Yes.
we've been told that this was going to happen through art for the longest time, and here we are. We're in this threat level that is very, very real now. It's
Yep.
you know, art imitates life, or does life imitate art? That's that $1 million question. Where are we? Either way, doesn't matter because it's here, and we have to think about that. And again, folks, again, I'm not trying to fear mongering, but this is why you should be scared. You should be scared enough to take action. Because let's face it, maybe some of you in this lifetime, maybe some of us, we don't live to see quantum computing and terminators, but your kids will,
Yep. Guaranteed. I mean,
you know?
again, at the rate of development, and the thing is that the typical back in like 20 years ago, we'd have what people they call script kiddies. They would buy these scripts and they would use them to hack. Okay. They come pre-developed by the experts. And most of these guys were like 13, 14, 15 years old. Okay. That has not changed. And what happens now is, as you mentioned, with the abilities that come along with AI, they know how to manipulate AI to provide answers to be able to use quantum computing once it becomes viable to do what they need to do and disappear without a trace. I mean, this is a real concern. Okay, so look forward to that, because hopefully we'll be having discussions coming up about that, because you're going to
Okay.
start hearing a lot more about it, just like you do with AI, as time progresses.
So yeah, so that's November 12th in Atlantic City at ACX1. We're literally on the water, over the beach, right at the Caesars property on the boardwalk. It's going to be beautiful. Great place to network and meet with everybody and get this education. Now, next week, we're going to have part 2 of this. I'm going to have Martin Conroy on. You're going to be back on with me. And we're going to stop with a little bit of the fear mongering, and we're going to bring some positive stuff, because we're going to talk about the value of the technology, how it could help our cities, how there's new jobs being built around this, workforce development. We're going to bring all the positive in for people, because you're not necessarily going to need to go to college to start learning this stuff. You could be
Correct.
having a second or third life in this. So
Yep.
we're going to bring that back next week. Pierre, I appreciate you coming on the show with me. I look forward to next week's conversation, our continued relationship. And folks, reach out to Pierre. He's an amazing, amazing person, knowledgeable like you can't imagine. My head hurts from listening to all the tech talk. This man knows his stuff. Pierre, we will check you out next week. Folks, join us next week, same time, same YouTube channel, Bat channel, Rumble channel, Facebook channel, wherever you're finding us. We are out of here.
Yeah, and if I could plug you, cyberfixers.net. One word.
Cyberfixers.net. Go